Keep It Thorough Thursdays, episode 21. This episode is about
21, man. We're on 27.
I did not update the episode, and that's crazy because I didn't update it on the whatchamacallit either.
21, bro. You gotta give us the 6, dog.
Yeah, I didn't even update the title of this whatchamacallit either. The on this live. I don't even know if I can change that shit afterwards. But episode 27, I skipped 6 episodes. But yeah, so investing in your kids' future. So this is a Money Matters episode. So every once a month we do a Money Matters episode where basically we talk about like financial literacy in some capacity. We've touched on various things from crypto to stocks to budgeting, savings plans,
diversification.
Yeah, diversification, like various different topics. And not too long ago, or last month actually, for the Money Matters episode, we talked about different ways of investing, right? Which was about diversification. And two of the things we talked about were 529 plans and custodial accounts. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take a lot of the different investment vehicles we talked about during that episode and do separate episodes where we kind of dive a little deeper and go into detail about those specific investment vehicles. So as always, welcome to Keep It Thorough Thursdays. It's your boy E Double.
Hey, yeah, what's up, good people? Cedric Lavelle. And like E said, going forward, based on that last episode that we did, as it relates to diversification and the many different vehicles that you're able to invest in, we wanted to give some more detailed and thorough information as it relates to those particular investments. So this week is going to be 529 custodial accounts, which I know would be supremely beneficial to anybody who has kids or anybody who's possibly looking to have kids. I would say from a personal experience, I knew nothing about a 529 or a custodial account when I was going to college and preparing for my for my educational future. So for anybody who's not familiar with those terms and the opportunities that those particular styles of accounts can present, this would definitely be a good episode to gather some great information. Obviously, with the kits that we offer every week, the link will be in the bio where you can go into the kit and view some of the context that we'll be speaking on in detail. But I definitely think this would be highly beneficial for individuals who want to invest in their kids' future and just set them off on the right path. You know what I'm saying? That's important.
Well, just give them a leg up, right? Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of us, especially in our communities, we didn't really have a leg up. We weren't taught a lot of financial literacy. It's definitely not really taught in schools. You know what I'm saying? So to be made aware of these vehicles that are not only can benefit you, but to benefit your children, right? I think are extremely important. And Sid mentioned it. The link for the kit is in the bio, so be sure to check that out. But without further ado, man, let's go and get right into it. So the proper foundation, Sid, go and kick it off, man. Go and define and tell them what custodial accounts are and what 529 plans are.
Right. So basically with the proper foundation, what we're looking at here is just setting up the foundation, what you're going to build on, what you're going to build that financial future on for your kids. So as we discussed prior to this guy here, prior to us kicking this segment off is basically the custodial accounts and the 529 plans and what they're beneficial for and how you can leverage them as your child or your children go into their post-graduation or young adult years. So let's start with one. The custodial accounts are savings or investment accounts that are usually held at a bank, brokerage, or other financial institution. Now, Eric has a lot of familiarity with both of these particular styles of accounts. And in our next slide, he's going to give a lot of detailed information for the advantages and the disadvantages. But I'm just going to give you a brief description of the two. And specific to the custodial account, basically, it's creating flexible funds that can be distributed towards multiple financial needs. So as the future comes and your kid turns 18, and there's many different things that they may need financially, obviously, whether it be, going to school, or whether it be just essential needs, as they're moving out, or they're looking to purchase a car, or whatever the case may be. This particular type of account can give you the opportunity to afford those things, right? And then when you look at a 529 plan, that's a school savings plan that provides tax-free investing and withdrawals for qualified educational expenses. And specifically with this particular style of account, it creates a path forward that provides the affordability of a great education. So if you know that your child is looking to further their education, going into a college, this would definitely be potentially a plan that you would want to look into to afford that education and lessen the financial burden that a lot of people go through when they're preparing to send their kids off to school, right? So go ahead, bro.
Oh, my bad. I don't want to. Okay.
No,
And
you
I
good.
just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to piggyback on that. So when I first learned about 529 plans, I thought it was like only for college, and it's technically not. It can be used for like private schools and things like that, like K through 12, for like approved. I'd have to get more information on what approved K through 12 schools are, but for our sake and our audience and the people we're talking to, think about it for college, right?
Mhm.
Because the truth of the matter is I don't think a lot of our people or our audience has the type of money where, or the luxury, like, I'm putting this money aside to pay for my kids 30,000 a year private school. You know what I mean? Like, so we'll when you think about 529 plan, think about a savings plan for your kids' college.
Right.
Now, with that being said, if you well off, you have kids down the road, or you making a lot of money, you can leverage a 529 plan to pay for like K through 12, approved.
Right.
K through 12 school. So that is an option, but just think about it as college. That's how we're positioning it.
Precisely. And so just to finish this particular slide off, what to know, right? So proper building requires using the proper tools. The best blueprint to create is one that addresses a well thought out future. So as I was saying, like with the 529 plan, along with the custodial account, there's different advantages. There's different disadvantages between the two. Definitely sitting down and kind of having that well thought out plan as far as what the future could potentially be will help you out in preparing the best way possible. That way you can get a more favorable outcome in the end. But both are extremely beneficial. They'll definitely support whatever it is that you're looking to do as it relates to education or future needs. And we're going to go into slide 2 unless Eric got something to say on this one, and go into the advantages and disadvantages.
No, we can go into slide 2. All right, so slide 2, smart money, right? So the way we broke this up is advantages and disadvantages. So first, I'll start with the advantages of a custodial account, then the advantages of a 529 plan, and then we'll go through the disadvantages of a custodial account and then the disadvantages of a 529 plan. So just to kind of recap what Seth was saying, so a custodial account is essentially a savings or investment account for a minor that is managed by an adult until that minor becomes of age, and then they take control of that account. Where a 529 plan is also typically managed by an adult, that the funds can be used for a child, or it doesn't even have to be a child. Actually, it can just be used for someone, for higher education or educational expenses, right? So with that foundation of understanding, we'll go into the advantages. So first, custodial account. So one of the greatest things about a custodial account is the flexibility. There are no income or contribution limits and no penalties for early withdrawals or restrictions on funds use. So basically, the money that's in a custodial account, you can pull out and use for whatever you want. You know what I mean? There's not a limit. Like with a 529 plan, the funds have to be used for education, or there's penalties, which we'll get to in a minute. But the custodial account, and then there's also no contribution limits. So if y'all watch the When Money Matters, where we talked about different investment vehicles, I compared a custodial account to kind of like a Roth Well, it's really not like a Roth IRA. A 529 plan is more like that. So we'll scrape that comparison. But basically, a custodial account can be used for whatever. There's no income or contribution limits. So unlike certain 401k plans or Roth IRA plans that have limits, it limits the amount you contribute. You can contribute as much as you want to a custodial account. Another advantage is a variety, right? You have a variety. So custodial accounts can trade or hold any asset or investment offered through the financial institution or brokerage. So that can be stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and various others. There's actually two types of custodial accounts, but one has been phased out, and really don't recommend. I wouldn't say don't recommend it, because we're not even gonna talk about it because it's been phased out. There's only 2 states in the United States that still offers it. It's like a UGMA and a I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. It's a UGMA and I'm drawing a blank on it. But yeah, we're not gonna talk about it because only 2 states in the United States. They've been phased out by these newer types of custodial accounts.
Yeah.
But yeah, variety. Whereas a comparison with a 529 plan, you don't have the same type of variety. Most 529 plans are mutual fund accounts. Now, if you do some digging and searching, you may find some that are invested in index funds and things like that. But most 529s are like mutual funds. And if you recall from our previous episode, mutual funds typically cost a little bit more than index funds because there's a manager. And because of that manager, it costs a little bit more for that type of investment. Whereas with custodial accounts, you can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, whatever you choose.
Variety.
Another, you said what?
No, I said variety. Basically,
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
gives you different opportunities. Diversity.
Another advantage of a custodial account is future planning, right? It's like a great way to start contributing to your child's financial future, which Fed kind of talked about, right? Like, just think about it as a savings account or investment account, which is exactly what it is. That you're making this money or building this money or wealth for your child over time, that when they become of age, they'll already have a solid footing, right? They'll already have a nice foundation under them. So if they want to go to school or pay for school, they can actually use the money from a custodial account. Or if they don't go to school and they want to start a business or whatever the case may be, they have that money there. Now, one thing to keep in mind with a custodial account is this is not your money. Okay, you're investing this money for your child. This is not an account that you invest in, you're just going to pull from and use. Like, that is not what a custodial account is. You're investing this money for your child. That is what this money is for. All right, so now we'll go into the advantages of a 529 plan, right? So there's a lot of tax benefits with a 529 plan, which kind of goes back to the comparison I was making. A 529 plan is very similar to a Roth 401k plan or a Roth IRA. If you remember, a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, you contribute after tax dollars, but the gains you make are non-taxable, right? Whereas a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, you invest pre-tax dollars, but then all of the gains are taxed, right? So a 529 plan is similar in that the money that you invest, the 529 plan grows on a tax deferred basis. Some states exclude qualified 529 plan distributions from taxable income. So meaning any distributions that you make or contributions is what that should read. Any contributions that you make to the plan, some states allows you to write that off, right? You got to check with your state laws and things like that. But there's it could be like a tax deduction. You know what I'm saying? But the money that's growing in that account is non-taxable as long as it's used for qualified educational expenses. Okay, so just to repeat that, contributions that you make to the account can some states offer income tax deductions or income tax credits, and the money that is made, or the gains that you make from those investments in the 529 account, are non-taxable as long as the money is used for qualified educational expense. So those are like huge tax benefits, right? That you don't get in the custodial account,
Right.
which we'll get to in a minute. Another benefit of a 529 plan is low maintenance. They can be set up fairly easy, and the management of the plan can be handled by a program manager, which, if we kind of go back to what I was saying about a mutual fund, right? A mutual fund typically has a manager that basically just manage the stocks that are in that fund, right? And a 529 plan can have a manager that'll, manage that for you, manage those mutual funds and things like that. Now, again, that can come with additional costs, though, right? So low maintenance, which is a positive, but it can be a cost, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And another benefit of a 529 plan is you have high contribution limits. So unlike other savings plans, such as a Roth IRA, 529 plans have no annual contribution limits, which this is very similar to a custodial account where there's no contribution limits. You can contribute as much as you want to these accounts, and there's no limits, unlike other retirement savings accounts where there's sometimes limits the amount that you can contribute. All right. So just to recap, a custodial account, some advantages: the flexibility, the variety of investments, and being able to, future planning for, the financial freedom of your children. With 529 plans, there's some tax benefits, they're low maintenance and high contribution limits. Okay. Now let's get into the disadvantages, right? Everything's not always rosy. So and at any time, if you want to chime in, say, feel free. So
now, okay, I'm gonna say this though. Even we're going through the disadvantages, as we always say, as it relates to anything financial, anything that we do say, always do your due diligence, right? Like take the
we are
resources
not
that
financial advisors. We are not financial advisors.
we
We are not financial advisors.
we ain't
I
we
I
ain't
do
that.
I do contribute into custodial accounts for my children,
Right.
both of my children. I am familiar with them. I know what they are. We are not financial advisors, though. I think most of the people y'all probably listen to on YouTube who give y'all financial advice aren't financial advisors. But do your due diligence. Obviously take what we say. If it sounds good, like that sounds. So do a little research, look into it. Fill in any holes, but definitely do your own due diligence. Do not take our words as gospel. All right, so disadvantages, right? Start with custodial accounts. There's a lack of tax breaks with custodial accounts. So basically, when your kid becomes an adult and they take control of that account, they'll owe taxes on any realized gains at their regular tax rate. So basically what that means is, I'm gonna super oversimplify this. So say there's $100,000 in your child's, so we'll say you invested a total of $100,000 in your kid's account from whenever you started to the time they were 18. And say that account now is worth $200,000, right? So you invested $100,000, and now over time it made another $100,000, right? So when they go to cash that out, now typically it's not in one place. So I'll use an example of our portfolio and our kids. We fund our kids custodial accounts with index funds. And if y'all remember, index funds is a collection of stocks very similar to a mutual fund, but it just does not have a money manager, which means that they're also a little bit cheaper. A mutual fund, you can't just sell one of the stocks in that mutual fund. If you want to sell it, you have to sell the entire index fund, right? You got to. Now, if you have individual stocks, which eventually that's what we will have for our children. As their portfolio grows, we'll buy individual stocks once there's more money. And the reason we don't do that initially is because you want diversification. So unless you're investing right out the gate with $100,000, you're not going to be able to diversify too much with $500, $1,000, or whatever, which is why it's better to get mutual funds, because it gives you some of that diversification. But anyway, with all that said, say you invested $100,000. Say the account now is worth $200,000, and it's spread out among individual stocks. It's not in index funds. So say you got some money in Apple, you got some money in Microsoft, you got some money in Tesla, whatever the case may be. Whenever your child goes to cash out some of that money, they're going to pay taxes, and it's going to be a long term capital gains tax because the money's been sitting in there for a while, right? It's not. It was longer than a year, but they are going to pay taxes, and that tax is going to be on based on their income, right, and how much they make. But moral of the story is there's not any tax breaks like you get on a 529 plan, right? With a 529 plan, the gains that you make, you don't pay any taxes on as long as it's used for a qualified educational expense. With a custodial account, you still have to pay taxes. Some people look at taxes as like a bad thing, right? The way I look at it is me paying more in taxes mean I made more money, right? Like, or me, you know what I mean? So like, would I have rather not made the money and not pay the taxes, or have made the money and just made a little less because I had to pay the taxes, right? So I don't look at that as necessarily a bad thing. Like, you know, to each his own though. And it is a capital gains tax as opposed to income tax, which the income tax brackets are higher than the capital gains tax brackets. All right. The next disadvantage of a custodial account is and I hold on. Okay, here we go. All right. The next disadvantage is this I can't fucking pronounce this word. Irrevocable. There we go. Irrevocable. Which basically what that word means is it can't be changed, right? It's final, right? So a custodial account legally belongs to the beneficiary, which is the child. And once they turn 18, they get full control of the account and can use the funds however they see fit, right? So as I mentioned earlier, you're investing in this account for your child. This is for your children, right? And once they turn 18, that, you know, account is theirs, right? So they can do whatever the hell they want to with the money. Now, this is where all of your hard work and parenting is gonna come to fruition, right? Or lack thereof, right? Because if you raise your child right, and you know what I mean, and your child is, you know, got a good head on their shoulders, they're still gonna listen to you, right? They're still gonna take your advice. Like, the smart thing to be is, okay, look, my mom and dad, you know, put all this work in to set this up for me. Like, why would I not listen to them now? Like, they still trying to help me, right? So,
Right.
In most cases, I think most children still will listen to you, right? Now, as they get a little older, as they 21, 22, 20, you know what I mean? You know, getting to their mid-20s or whatever the case may be, then yeah, they're going to start doing their own thing. And hopefully they got their own bit of financial literacy and things like that, where they can kind of do a better job of managing, but, you know, probably still will consult with you and, you know, get your opinion and things like that. So it's looked at as a negative just because if they don't listen to you and they just want to go off and do whatever the hell they want to, they can go below the money. They can do that. You know what I mean? Now, with that being said, you shouldn't be counting on the money or anything anyway. It really shouldn't have too much of an effect on you besides being disappointed, because you should have your own investment vehicles that you're tapped into and that you're doing for yourself. And this is for your kids. So, yeah, so, you know, it may disappoint you, but at the end of the day, it was their money, right? So, and now another thing to think about too is this isn't they turn 18, blow through the money. Like, no, this is still an investment vehicle. Instead of it being a custodial account, now it just transforms into a regular investment account. The same way you create like an investment account for yourself. They just took control of it now, and now it's an investment account for them, right? So like, you should have your own investment account. So that's another way to look at it. Like, it's not like, oh, okay, this money was set up for them, so when they turn 18, they can just take it and go blow the bag. Like, no. That's not what it is. Should continue being an investment account that can help them, right? Because if you invest properly, your money makes money for you, where it can continue to grow. Depending on the stocks that you're invested in, you can get dividends. So like certain stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and various other companies, some of them pay dividends quarterly, some pay yearly, some pay biannually, where basically it's like profit sharing and things like that with the shareholders, where you make money, right? So like, in the event that your child needs something, so say for instance they turn 18 or getting ready to go to college, let's say they got a scholarship or something like that, and they need a car, right? You know, and you know, if there's you know, $250,000 sitting in there, and you know you're getting dividends for some of these stocks that you hold. Say, you know, quarterly you're getting a hundred and something dollars in dividends, right? You could take a little, you know, sell a few stocks, put a nice down payment on the car, and the dividends could pay for that car payment. And them dividends are not money that's coming off of the stocks. That's extra money on top of the stocks, right? So, you know, be smart with this. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, if you use it for college, like, okay, say there's, and by all means, if you start an account for your child soon enough, like my children have had these accounts before they turn 1 year old. And by the time they are 18 years old, they're going to have 7 figures in these accounts. But I'm just playing with numbers here. But if there's $300,000 or something like that in the account, and then, you know, you need to take out 40, 50,000 for school or whatever, that's still a good thing, right? Because that's $50,000 or $60,000 that you're taking out to pay for the education that they don't got to take a student loan on and then be paying all this interest on, right? Where a lot of people I know to this day have taken out student loans and they owe more than what they took out still and been paying on it for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So like it's still a benefit, right? And not having debt or taking on debt is a huge positive, right? So few ways to look at it. All right. So now another disadvantage of a custodial account is financial aid. It can impact financial aid. So since the asset is owned by your child, this may affect the ability to receive financial aid or be eligible to receive government or community aid. So when you apply for financial aid, you know, they look at your like income and all that, right? And then I think they have actually even look at your parents' income and things like that, like if depending on how old you are, right? Or if you're, I think if you're still filed as a dependent by your parents on their taxes, I think they look at their income. But if you're not a dependent, I don't think they look at their income. But anyway, this account is owned by your child, so it's something that you have to show. And if there's like a lot of money in there, it's going to show that they have this income, which can cause them to not qualify for financial aid. Now, again, some people can look at that as a negative, but to me, financial aid is for people who don't have the money to pay for college, right? If you have the money to pay for it, that's not a negative, because then you are able to pay for it, you know, straight up and not have to pay.
You don't owe it back,
right? And you don't owe it back. So so I put it here as a disadvantage, just so people could be aware that it can affect financial aid eligibility, but I really honestly don't really look at that as a negative. So now moving on to the 529 plan and disadvantages of a 529 plan. So there are penalties for non-qualified withdrawals, so anything that you pull out that's not a qualified financial or a qualified educational expense, there's a penalty for that. Non-qualified distributions are subject to income tax and a 10% penalty on the earnings. Some exceptions apply to that rule, such as scholarships. So like if they get a scholarship and you like pull out some of the money, there's some exceptions. If you go to if they go to military academy, if they die or become disabled. So there are some exceptions to that rule. But an important thing there, right, is the distributions are subject to income tax, right? So not capital gains tax, income tax, which is a higher percentage, and a 10% penalty on top of that. So that's very similar to like if you do an early withdrawal from your like 401k, right? Like a traditional 401k, you pay a penalty and taxes on it, right? Whereas if you pull out of a Roth 401k, since the gains are tax free, you don't pay taxes, but you still would have to pay a penalty. But yeah, so that's a negative, right? And for that very reason is why I choose to not invest in 529 plans and I do custodial accounts for my children. Because the truth of the matter is this: with the state of the world and technology and our school systems and things like that, I don't know when my children turn 18 if they're going to need to go to college. Now, if you ask me right now what my viewpoint on that is, I would say yes, I would like for my children to go to college, you know, get continued education. I went to college. It's greatly benefited me and my career and things like that. But the other side of me is I'm an entrepreneur, right? That's what drives me. And you know, my children are my children, right? And they're going to see, you know, businesses and things that I grow, and they may one either be able to take over some of those things or create their own and may not need to go to college, right? So
Right.
I'd rather not be penalized for wanting to pull that money out and use it for something else. So I'd rather do a custodial account where if they do go to college, I can use that money for college. I don't get some of those tax benefits that the 529 plan has, but it gives me that flexibility that I talked about as a pro for the custodial account, right? I get that flexibility. All right. Another negative of a 529 plan is you have limited investment choices. So 529 account owners must select from a menu of investment options offered by the 529 plan. And as I mentioned, most 529 plans um, are mutual funds, right? But then if you do some shopping around, you can find some that may, you know, invest in like some index funds or various different things. And there's also direct sold 529 plans versus managed 529 plans, you know, which there's a lot of different variables, but um, the bottom line is you're limited. You're not wide open like you are with a custodial account where you can invest in whatever stock you want. You can fund that custodial account however you want. You can with stocks, uh, uh, freaking index funds, bonds, mutual funds, you know, whatever you choose, right? Whereas the 529 account, there's a decent amount of options, but it's not wide open like how a custodial account is. You got to pick from a menu of options that are provided by that plan. So that's a negative. And the last disadvantage that we're going to talk about is fees. And I kind of mentioned this already. So direct sold 529 plans are less than advisor sold plans. Fees can vary, so it's important to find a low cost 529 plan. And that advisor sold plan, right, which goes back to a benefit that I talked about, with it being low maintenance, where it's handled by the manager. So that benefit comes at a cost, right? So if you don't, you know, for it to be low maintenance and you really not have to pay attention to it and let it be managed by someone, that comes with a cost. Where opposed to if, you know, it's a direct sold 529 plan and you kind of got to manage it, which I'd say there's not a ton of management involved in it, but you know, you're gonna be a little bit more hands-on and not like a set it and forget it type situation. So those fees for the 529 plan can be a disadvantage. So again, in summary, the disadvantages: a custodial account, lack of tax breaks, irrevocable, which means you can't change it. You know, it's final. You know, it belongs to your children. If you don't like it, if you don't like them, something happened, too bad. And it can have an impact on your qualifying for financial aid. The disadvantages for 529 plan is there's penalties for non-qualified withdrawals. You have limited investment choices, and then there can be high fees depending on the 529 plan that you purchase. So, so what's the impact, right, of these various plans? Eliminate the many uncertainties by choosing a direction that will allow you and your child or children to be well prepared. So when looking to invest in your child's future and looking at these two options, and there's other options out there, right? There's, you know, um, trusts and various other things. Like trusts are way more expensive, way more complicated, way more final in terms of whatever you put in the trust and how it needs to be allocated and distributed and things like that. But when speaking to these two particular accounts, it's very important to kind of look at what your purpose is and what your plan is, right? If
Right.
if you're very big on, you know, education and college, and you didn't go to college, and you know, you just, you know, when you got hit with a whole lot of student debt and couldn't afford it, and your main objective is to make sure that your kid can go to college and be, you know, as debt free as possible, then you may want to go to 529 plan route. You know what I mean? And that's not to say you can't take that money out if it doesn't get used for college. You can. You're just going to be subject to those penalties and that income tax, right? Now, if your main goal is to just try to create a safety net for your child financially, right? That, and this money can be used for whatever it needs to be used for, whether it's for school, whether it's for I don't know, a car, down payment on a house, to start a business, just to help out, then you may want to do a custodial account instead of a 529 plan. And as I mentioned, I chose, and me and my wife have opted for custodial accounts for our children because we didn't want to be locked into that 529 plan and needing to use it for school with having that uncertainty and then being penalized if we didn't use it for school. So that was the route that we chose. But again, do your homework, do your due diligence, find out what your objective is and what your plan is, and then pick the plan accordingly. But I would heavily recommend doing something for your
Right.
children, and it's never too late. Obviously, the younger they are, the longer the account will be established, and the longer it has to grow. But even if they're older, right? If your kids are 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever the case, you still can set something up for them and it can accumulate and make some money, So definitely recommend doing one of these. You wanted to add anything to all that
Yeah,
said?
no. So I was just gonna say, find the benefit of doing like a scenario analysis, right? And just create different scenarios that could potentially be carried out as time progresses. And as you do that scenario analysis, really look at each individual account and see which one would be the most beneficial for that particular scenario. And then when you do that, you can also just weigh out the pros and the cons of each, or the advantages and the disadvantages, and see which one best fits what the future would potentially be, right? So whether it be something like with, kids going to school, or potentially making a decision to do something with a business, or what's currently going on right now within the economy, and what potentially the 3 to the next 5 years can look like. Just kind of play with different scenarios just to have a better understanding of direction. That way you can make the most reasonable and well thought out decision. That way, once that time comes around, when they're 18 or when they're graduating and they're about to go into their young adult and post-graduation years, you'll know with confidence, along with your child knowing with confidence, that everything that needs to be taken care of can be done, and that there's a level of security with making sound decisions and moving forward on the path that they're wanting to choose on. So yeah, that's all I got on that, bro.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's tons of information out there. I would say our biggest objective and point of these episodes is just to bring like awareness, right? Not to
Certainly, yeah.
be a know-it-all or like an end-all be-all of information, because even in these, with all these different investment vehicles and things like that, there's so much information. There's so many little tidbits. But what I've learned is you don't have to know everything about something to get started. You just need to know enough to feel comfortable, right?
Right.
And hopefully these episodes and going over these topics brings awareness to certain, topics and things like that. Like I didn't know nothing about custodial accounts or 529 accounts until I was an adult, you know. I
Me
had no
too.
idea, right? And I would say I don't think any of my peers, growing up knew anything about it. Like I don't know of any. Yeah, I don't, you know what I mean. So it was new information to me, and and this is one of those things that provides that generational wealth, right? Like, because the amount of money that can grow in these accounts and the leg up, right? Which it does multiple things. One, it eliminates debt, right? So it eliminates the need to take out student loans, which is typically, one of the larger pieces of debt people hold, second to their home. But
Oh
student
yes.
loan debt, once it goes into default or into collections, can actually have a negative impact on people purchasing homes. You know what I mean? So it eliminates one of those issues. You know what I'm saying? And then not having debt and also having cash gives you leverage.
Right.
So you can be a little smarter and educate your children and give them that financial literacy. So once they turn 18, they're a little smarter with their money and they can manage it better. So very important. But going on to the last and final slide before we round this out, I guess I'll take the first couple and then let you finish the last two
Good work,
set.
bro.
So the fun part. right? The funds part, right? So what happens next? Gain peace of mind knowing there are accessible funds for your children or uh, children's education, right? So if you choose to invest in a 529 plan or a custodial account, you have a bit of security in knowing that, okay, if they choose to go to school, we got them
We're
covered. You
good.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
they're good. And depending on how much you're investing, if you don't got it all covered, you got a huge portion of it to give them a leg up, head start. So it gives you a peace of mind. Um, Next is financially accelerate your child or children's post graduation journey with funds to give them a head start, which we kind of already talked about this. And that money can be used for various different things, man. Like um, you know, for buying a car, for a down payment on a house, can be used for starting a business, can be used for other investment things. You know what I mean? They can take that money out and invest it into, rental properties or, whatever the case may be. But definitely gives them a head start.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and let you take the last two,
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah. So last two. So grow returns by making strategic investments that allow funds to grow and generate higher gains. So basically, with just for an example, with the custodial account, if you're not taking out any money, keep contributing. Like we said, once they turn 18 and that accounts go to a standard investment account, keep growing them gains. Keep contributing to those accounts and building higher returns in the end, and setting yourself up for your adult years, right? So if you're looking at being 18 and you're still contributing a significant amount over the next 5 years, 10 years, as you think about the
Said said
compound.
said said better than me. I ain't contributing shit once they turn 18. At that point, the account growing, it's making its own money. So said better than me,
Hey, but as that account grows, there's an opportunity to really benefit in the end, right? And then lastly, provide timely advice that will teach your children or your child the most effective way to manage funds and have a healthy relationship with money. So this is definitely a prime opportunity to really sit down and discuss financial literacy with your child. And that really puts the responsibility on you as the parent to understand uh, money and having a healthy relationship with money, which is of high importance. The relationship that you have with money will definitely be reflected in the way that you speak to your child or your children about money and what you know. So making certain that you set the example as far as how to save, how to budget, knowing your wants, knowing your needs, where to put your money at, how to maximize, how to get proper returns, when to borrow, when to leverage, and all these particular types of things. Just make certain as a parent that you're doing your due diligence and learning, that you're opening up your mind to more knowledge and a better understanding of what it is that you can use and what you need in your current state, that would allow you to impact and influence them in the future, because you definitely will want your child or your children to be able to be financially sound and be financially savvy and aware as they get older, because obviously with the economy that we live in now, and obviously in the future with the economy, you want to make certain that you know how to manage your funds, but also just have a healthy relationship with money, because a lot of people don't, right? So don't, you
yeah,
don't want to fall in that aspect.
and to your point with providing timely advice, right? I think having this account set up incentivizes you to have those conversations because you know
Precisely.
that
Yeah.
when they turn 18, that they about to get access to this money, and it's to your benefit to make sure that they don't go blow it,
Yeah.
right? So it incentivizes you to, okay, let me talk to them about this. Let me talk to them about this. Like me and my wife's viewpoint is we're not going to tell the kids about the account. Now, as they get older and they hear me doing stuff like this, they may catch wind of it and may ask questions, but I don't really sit down. I don't really plan on sitting down and have a conversation with them about these custodial accounts until they become of age. But I will have a bunch of conversations with them about money, just
Right.
in a general sense, as they grow up, right? Like me and said have had a bunch of conversations about things that I plan on like implementing with my children and like teach them about money, where not just giving them a set allowance every week, but making them actually do chores and treating it like a job, you know what I mean? And making them, if they want to buy certain things, they don't have enough money, then okay, you can borrow against your other paycheck. And if you don't pay it back or do your chores, then, you know, charging interest and, you know, various different things to really teach them how money works. So it's not one of those situations where it's like, you know, I'm surprised sometimes that like teenagers, even my little sister, right, and their lack of understanding of money and how much things cost, right? Like to ask a question like, you know, how much you think that car costs, or how much you think this house costs, or how much you think it costs to fill up, you know, a gas tanker, which shit is very expensive right now, but just various different things, and them not really like having an idea or a grasp of, you know, what a dollar's worth, you know what I mean? Like what, you know, how much you can get with this, you know what I mean? So I think it's very important to set that foundation for your kid. And again, I think these type of account, more primarily a custodial account, incentivizes you to have those conversations, because you don't want them to get that money and just blow it.
Yes, sir. All right, so final thoughts, and we're gonna wrap it up. So lessen your financial obstacles and fund your kids' opportunities by designing the path that will lead to financial favor. So you want favor in the end. You want to be in a position where you're able to do whatever it is that is necessary to be certain that your kid gets the proper education, or even gets their endeavors funded. Whatever they're looking to potentially do in the future, you definitely want to make certain that they're able to achieve those things. You want to put them in the right direction towards achieving those things. So as we, you know, kind of discussed throughout this whole segment in this live, is, you know, do your due diligence and knowing what to. This guy over here in his doggone camera, man, you can find you a new trick and you up here getting excited.
That was an update recently, man. I ain't know
Yeah, dang, boy, like a kid in a candy store. But definitely do your due diligence and learning what you need to learn, understanding what you need to understand. That way, as time progresses, you will be making sound decisions, and along with your child being able to feel secure, you know, because the burden of even getting out of school and graduating, it could certainly be challenging, you know, and I've seen it countless amounts of times, right? When you're graduating school, you're done with high school, and the next phase of your life is about to begin. You know, a lot of parents are challenged with the burden of not having the financial flexibility or capability to do for their child or for their children, or they're unable to put them in a school, and they have to take out a significant amount of financial aid. And obviously understanding that with financial aid, in the end, a lot of times you're going to owe, and there's going to be interest that you have to pay on it. And so if you have the opportunity to, you know, put your children in a very sound position, to have the least amount of debt coming out of college, or even for the next 3 to 5 years of their life, man, you definitely want to take advantage of that, because there's no greater feeling of being able to support your children in their journey as they move forward into their adult years by blessing them financially, to not have to start out in the hole, right? To not have to start out getting themselves in debt. Because, you know, when you think about it, let's say you're going to school, you take out financial aid, you immediately start your life in debt, right?
Well, that, what a lot of 18-year-olds do is they apply for their first credit card.
That and too. I had a homeboy who did that.
They go run that up.
Ran it up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so if with a custodial account, if you got the necessary funds to, you know, say, hey, take this money, use this, you know, for your first few years. And if they have the financial savviness and the literacy to understand how money works, how jobs and building businesses work, and they can, you know, use that money to have leverage and then be able to financially put themselves in a position going forward where, you know, that money is kind of secondary to them now. Man, that's the best possible position that you can put your children in, right?
And the thing really to realize too, right, about like a custodial account. So I'll just use my kids as an example. So if you've been investing in the account for 18 years, there's like so much money in that account at that point that money's making money without you needing to invest anything else into it. So like that money is just making money. So like if you invested, matter of fact, I'll just pull this up one time just to give an example. So which the stock market is down severely right now, if anybody has been paying attention. But let's go back 18 years, right? Which would be what, 2004, 12.
Yeah. We're in 22, 18, 19, yeah.
Yeah, 2004.
2000.
All right. So, and we're in June. Okay, so 2004 June. So in June 2004, Apple stock was 55 cents. Okay? So if you had, we'll just call it, let's say $2,000 times 55, or 2,000 divided by 55. $2,000 divided by 55 cents. If I can type on my calculator. All right, so that would have been 3,636 shares of Apple. So 3,636. 3,636. So that $2,000 18 years ago would be worth $502,000 right now. That's how much it would be worth. And that's $2,000 in one stock. So multiply that across a portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's without investing any more money. That's just letting that $2,000 grow over 18 years, right? So that just puts it into perspective for you, you know. That, I think that puts it into perspective for you. So definitely continue to contribute over those 18 years, but once it gets there, that account makes money for itself. So be smart with your kid. They can take money without dropping the account where it still is growing over time. And you know, there may be little dips, like you know, say they get married at 20, 24, 25, say they get married young. I got married when I was 25, and say they want to, which depends on how you play it, right? Like I guess I'm more traditional, and I don't have any daughters, right? But I'm more traditional in the sense that if my daughter was to get married, I would have paid for the wedding. I got 2 sons, so I guess I'm looking out. Hopefully they marry somebody where their parents pay for the wedding. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Say you need to pay for a wedding or something like that. It costs whatever it costs, 60,000, 70,000. I don't know how much a damn wedding costs right now. But you know, it may take a little dip, but that money gonna be made back, you know. And how often do you get married? Hopefully not more than once. You know what I'm saying? So you're not taking those. You said what? One and done, right? But yeah, so just gives you an example where, you know, it's and this also shows you the power in building that generational wealth, right? Where like the money just can multiply, and then if your kids then set up a custodial account for their kids, and so on and so forth, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. You know what I mean? It's like a very, very powerful tool. You know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, just wanted to share that tidbit and kind of put it into perspective. So yeah, $2,000 invested in Apple 18 years ago would be worth $502,000 today. That's, and the stock is down, and the stock is down right now, like a lot, by the way. So but yeah. So yeah, without further ado, you had anything else you wanted to? Well, so recommendations. If you click on the link in the bio, drop into the kit. There's 4 brokerages that are in there. There's Charles Schwab, Vanguard, Stockpile, and Acorns. Charles Schwab, a lot of y'all heard about. I'm pretty sure they're pretty popular. Vanguard, a lot of people heard about. Stockpile is fairly new to me. Acorns, I heard about. I think Acorns is more of like a digital platform. I think you deal with a lot of like AI, and you don't really talk to too many people. It's more kind of like the new version of kind of like investing to kind of simplify it. But All of those offer custodial accounts and 529 plans, with the exception of Stockpile. They don't have 529 plans, but those are just some. Like, so many financial institutions and, you know, brokerages, and do your research, right? Because you got to look at the fees that you got to pay for the accounts and various different things like that. But it's not hard to do, right? Just get out there and go do it. But so yeah, I'll you got anything else you want to add, Sid?
That's it, bro. I think that's it, man. Look forward to next week's episode.
Hey, absolutely. Hey, and without further ado, if you don't do nothing else, keep it thorough.
Yeah,
I'll let
keep
y'all
it
next.
right. Till next time.